Daf Yomi Tractate Bava Metzia, page 10a. Top of the page, the words Masnis and Mani, etc. Whose opinion is expressed in the Mishnah? It is the opinion of the rabbis, who hold that one cannot acquire an item for another in this manner. But if you say that the dispute is specifically in the case of a rich person and a poor person, but in a case where the payah, which means the portion that's left over for the poor, the corner of the field, the payah was gleaned by a poor person on behalf of a poor person, everyone agrees that he acquired it on the latter's behalf, in accordance with whose opinion is this Mishnah. It is neither in accordance with the opinion of the rabbis, nor in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. Ula said to Rav Nachman, the Mishnah is referring to a case where the one lifting the item said, I intended to acquire the item for myself at the outset. I never had intention to acquire it on behalf of the rider. The Gemara adds, so too it is reasonable to explain the Mishnah in this manner, as it teaches in the last clause, but if, after giving it to the one riding the animal, he said, I acquired it for myself. At the outset, he has said nothing, and the rider keeps the item. Why do I need the phrase at the outset to be mentioned in the last clause? It is obvious that even if he did not explicitly say at the outset, he meant that he acquired it at the outset before he gave it to the rider. Rather, isn't the phrase mentioned to teach us this? The first clause of the Mishnah is also referring to a case where he said, I intended to acquire it for myself at the outset. And the other sage, Rav Nachman, is of the opinion that the Mishnah taught this phrase in the last clause of the Mishnah in order to shed light on the first clause. The last clause is referring to a case where he said that he acquired the item at the outset in order to indicate that in the first clause, the one who lifts the item acquires it even in a case where he did not say that he acquired it for himself at the outset. In Rav Nachman's opinion, the rider does not acquire the item until it is given to him. The Gemara discusses the opinion of Rav Nachman and Rav Chisda, who both say, in a case of one who performs an act of acquisition by lifting a found item on behalf of another, the other person, in other words the latter, does not acquire ownership of the item. What is the reason for this? The reason is that it is a case of the one who seizes assets for a creditor in a situation that will result in a disadvantage for others, as the debtor owes money to other creditors as well. And one who seizes assets for a creditor in a situation that will result in a disadvantage for others does not acquire the assets for him. Although a creditor can himself seize the assets as payment for the debt, no one else can take action that will benefit one person at the expense of others. Similarly, since everyone has equal rights to an ownerless item that is found, one person cannot deprive all others of that right on behalf of another person. Rava raised an objection to the opinion of Rav Nachman from a Braita. The found item of a laborer, in other words, something that he found, belongs to him, and not to the employer for whom he is working at that time. In what case is the statement that the item belongs to the laborer said? It is said when the employer told the laborer to perform a specific task. For example, he said to him, "Weed for me today," or "till for me today." Since the employer specified the task that he hired the laborer to perform, the laborer has rights to the item that the laborer found. But if the employer said to the laborer, "Work for me today," without specifying the nature of the work, the found item is the employer's, as finding ownerless items is included within the general category of work. This indicates that a laborer can acquire an item for someone else, which contradicts Rav Nachman's principle. Rav Nachman said to him, "A laborer is different, as his hand is like the hand of the employer. He is considered his agent while he is working for him." Rava responded, "But doesn't Rav say that a laborer may reconsider and quit his job even at midday?" Evidently, the relationship between the employer and the laborer is structured to the benefit of the laborer. Rav Nachman said to him, "As long as he does not retract his commitment, his hand is like the employer's hand. When he does retract his commitment, he is able to do so. But this is not because matters are structured to the benefit of the laborer, but a different reason, as it is written, 'For to me the children of Israel are slaves. They are my slaves, whom I brought forth out of the land of Egypt,' Leviticus 25:55, which indicates they are my slaves, and not slaves of slaves, meaning other Jews. Consequently, a Jew can never be enslaved to another Jew with a contract from which he cannot release himself whenever he wishes. Nevertheless, as long as the laborer does not quit the job, he is considered his employer's agent." Contrary to the opinion of Rav Nachman and Rav Chisda, Rav Abba says that Rav Yochanan says, in a case of one who performs an act of acquisition by lifting a found item on behalf of another, the other person acquires ownership of the item. And if you say that our Mishnah seems to suggest otherwise, is referring to a case where the rider says to the pedestrian, "Give it to me," but does not say, "Acquire it for me." If he says, "Give it to me," the rider acquires the item only when it reaches his possession. If he says, "Acquire it for me," the rider acquires the item as soon as the pedestrian lifts it. New Mishnah. The Mishnah says, if one saw a found item and fell upon it, intending to thereby acquire it, but did not employ one of the formal modes of acquisition, and then another came and seized it, the one who seized it acquired it, because he employed one of formal modes of acquisition. The Gemara says, Rish Lakish says, in the name of Abba Cohen Bardella, Abba Cohen Bardella. The area of 4 square cubits surrounding a person has the legal status of his courtyard, and that affects acquisition of every ownerless item located there for him everywhere. What is the reason for this? The sages instituted this ordinance so that people would not come to quarrel over an item. Bava said that Reb Chia Bar Yosef raises an objection to this from a Mishnah in Tractate Peah. Rava said that Rabbi Yaakov Bar Idi raises an objection to this from a Mishnah in Nezikin. The Gemara elaborates. Abaye said that Reb Chia Bar Yosef raises an objection to this from Mishnah in Peah 4:3. Which states if a poor man took some of the payah in the field and threw it on the rest of the payah in order to acquire it, he has nothing of it. The same is true if he fell upon the payah, or if he spread his garment over it. Others may remove him or his garment from the payah in order to take it for themselves, as he did not acquire it. And the same is true in the case of a forgotten sheaf, left for the poor. A poor person cannot acquire it in any of these manners. Rabbi Chia Bar Yosef continues, and if you say that a person's area of 4 square cubits affects acquisition of property for him everywhere, let his area of 4 square cubits affect acquisition of the payah or the forgotten sheaf for him. The Gemara responds, what are we dealing with here? We are dealing with a case where he did not say, I will acquire the payah through this action. He performed the action without revealing his intention, therefore his acquisition is ineffective. The Gemara asks, but if the sages institute an ordinance that the area of 4 cubits surrounding a person acquires property for him, then even in a case where he did not say, I will acquire the produce, what of it? Shouldn't he have acquired the item without expressing his intent to do so? The Gemara answers, this case is different. Since he fell upon it, he thereby revealed his intention. That is satisfactory for him to acquire the produce by falling on it. And it is not satisfactory for him to acquire the produce to the ordinance concerning his 4 square cubits, since he decided to forego the mode of acquisition that the sages instituted, and if falling on the produce is not a valid mode of acquisition, he did not acquire the produce.